You are now listening to Obtain, Achieve, Thrive, Hustle with Metro. Come take the oath.
Yeah. What's goody? It's your boy, METRONORTH, a.k.a. Robert Drowney Jr., a.k.a. El Megalodon, your neighborhood villain. And you already know we back with another episode of the O.A.T.H podcast. I hope y'all enjoyed those last 3 episodes I put out about my time that I spent in prison. You know what I mean? I left a few things out just so, in future episodes I could, go back and tell those stories. I didn't want to give y'all the whole rundown of everything. So, I just gave y'all the general story about, the people I met and the relationships that I have and maintain to this day. You know what I mean? Good times. But, like I said the last couple episodes, No Country for Weak Man is out now. Gotta send that email. I know I said in July. Today is what, July 6th? I know I said it might, the price might go up and shit, but right now you can still get it for free if you just shoot me an email at metronorthmusic@gmail.com, and I will definitely get back to you. I check the email every day. I'm also working on getting a hotline. Well, not a hotline, but basically just a phone number so we could do this little interactive thing on this podcast. What I want to start doing is I'm going to put out a number soon, and I want people to, call in and leave voicemails and any questions and anything y'all want to talk about. And we're going to, have a little segment on that because I've been watching a few people's podcasts, and I noticed that, that interactive stuff is a good, it's a good segment to have on a podcast. You just don't want to be up here telling stories all goddamn day, even though sometimes that could be very, very entertaining. I kind of want to do a little bit different. Shout out to Stavros, right? Good comedian. That's where I got the idea from. I've been listening to Stavi's World and Come Town Pause, and I'm like, yo, I like the way that these guys do these podcasts where they have like numbers you could call in. Danny Brown did that on his podcast too. He ain't put out a podcast in almost like a year, so I don't know what's up with that, but shout out to them for really influencing me to, start creating some new things on this show. But let's dive into it. Today I want to talk about success, right? To me, success is an opinion. Everyone individually has an idea of what success is to them. Some people might think success is becoming rich and famous. Some people think success is going to college, finding a great job, taking care of their family, that whole fake American dream. But I want to talk about specifically finding success and gaining success later on in life, like 30 years old plus, because there's quite a few people who I'm motivated by who found success later on in life. Some of them are my age, some of them are way older, but they found success when they're around my age or maybe a little bit older. Well, also the psychological process that you go through when you find and gain success later on in life, right? I believe that when you find success later on in life, you have experience, right? You've dealt with pain, struggle, you've gained knowledge, you have a perception of reality that is more grounded. You have a higher value for life and the things you do in life. You just realize that the experience and everything that you go through really builds you and prepares you for the success versus someone who gets success earlier on in life. And we tend to see those people, not all the time, but sometimes you see these people who gain success earlier in life, they fall hard. right? They say that a lot about a lot of child actors when they grow up. They say that a lot about a lot of these rappers. It's just a lot of people that we all grew up watching as '90s kids who were at the top of their game when we were young and influenced us and motivated us. And then once we got in our 20s and our 30s, it was just all crash and burn. Like, but me personally, I feel like I'm one of the people that is finding and gaining success later on in life due to the fact that I went to prison from my teens to my mid 20s. I didn't get the head start like a lot of people. Um, while everyone was graduating high school, going to college, or if they didn't go to college, getting their first apartment, you know, leaving mom and dad's house, whoever's house, getting their first car, their first real job. I was late to the party with that. You know what I mean? I got my official first job, like where I was actually getting W-2s and all of that. I got that when I was 25 years old. And I started late when it came to learning about paying rent, learning about taxes, learning about just adult life in general. Like I had no idea because when I, got locked up, I was young. I was still technically staying at mom crib, even though I wasn't really there all the time. But you know, I had no real responsibility. So that me coming home at 25, I'm like, damn, I'm kind of 5, 6 years behind a lot of my peers. But I want to make this clear, I never try to keep up with my peers or, compared my, level 1 to somebody's level 10. That don't make sense to me. But a lot of people do that. A lot of people go, oh, he in a foreign. I need to get a foreign. He got this and I ain't got it. I need that because I know I'm, what I mean, all that bullshit. But I'm a firm believer in everything that you go through, whether it's, the downs, the ups, the happy, the sad, it builds a foundation for your character and your mentality. So me personally, I've gone through from 25 to 34, 33, whatever, however old I am. I've dealt with pain, right? Losing my mom, losing my brother, losing people who really motivated me. Like when I said in the song, what you know about losing the people who encourage you and being left with fake friends that'll probably murder you. Like that bar to me, that's one of my favorite bars because that's how I believe my life is. Like I lost the people who really motivated me, like my brother Mike. Um, we was getting money and we made a lot of plans. And I'm thinking in my head at the time we were making these plans, this was before I went to prison, that shit, it's a clear tunnel vision to what we were planning on doing. But then I went on a detour. And then when I was locked up, we still made plans. It was just around the circumstances that I was under. And then he falls to the BS in the streets. And now I'm just left here like, damn, all of the things that I was planning involved him. So now I gotta rearrange these plans and revamp everything to where he's, obviously he's not involved, but how can I do it while I keep his name and his legacy alive? So, and then losing my mom, like my mom never got to see me perform. She never got to hear any of my music because she passed away before I actually started like getting back into music. And she knew that I had aspirations to doing music, and this podcast and stuff wasn't in the plans back then. But I know if she was here that she'll be very happy because all of the things that I went through, the struggles and the adversities that I went through, I didn't let it stop me from aiming for my goal and executing these little goals along the way to the main goal. And I've dealt with so many things that I believe help build my character to strengthen me, to make me more ambitious, to make me disciplined for real. Overall, you need discipline to get success. That's one thing. Like, and when you gain early success, it isn't always prosperous due to the lack of like knowledge and experience in life you have. You dig? If I would have, been what my idea of success was when I was 18, 19, because that was like my mindset, I probably wouldn't have lasted because of the way my brain worked, the way my outlook on the world was. It was just like, basically, I thought life was like a big GTA server, for real, for real. But without the experience and the knowledge that you gain throughout life as you get older, you have really no respect for like money and the position of power that you're in when you're successful. And I see a lot of people, younger people, like they seek validation and approval from other people, and the temporary comfort, and they get very entitled, and they don't have patience. They want everything that they want right now, and they feel like they deserve it when they want it. And that's one thing that I believe like helped me really accept the fact that I wasn't gonna get early success, on top of not being free. But late success in life, you're less likely to be distracted. You calculate it with everything you do, every move, and the critical thinking that goes into like a small decision that you're making. That's how I move today, right? I don't make moves based off of how I'm feeling right then and there. I really think about it. I think of the end game and how I could do certain things to make it work for me. I don't want to be one of these people who just react off of emotion, or impulsively, and shit just go bad, man. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I've become more private and selective, and more disciplined with my access. I don't let people have as much access to me as I once did. Before, I used to just be outside and you could see me around in the clubs. Now I'm like, I'm nowhere to be found majority of the year. You might see me 2 or 3 times in one year at like a party or a club or a bar. I don't be outside, man. I've been stressing that shit for like the past year about how I just been out of sight, out of mind. Don't wonder where I'm at. Don't ask about where I'm at. I'm where I'm supposed to be, where who I'm supposed to be, and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, I kind of stopped explaining my plans and my goals with everyone too. I really don't talk about what I got planned, what I'm doing to anybody really when it comes to like whether it's music, in my personal life. I talk about certain things on the pod, but I don't give y'all everything. You know what I mean? Some things just need to go unsaid to preserve, the possibility of it, actually happen. I do a lot of manifesting, a lot of meditating and stuff like that. And I learned when you talk about these things, you put it out there, a lot of people could just, prey on that and wish you the worst. And a lot of people do. Trust me, I know. And another thing that I've once said in a song was like, I stopped trying to look successful and I start trying to become successful. You know what I mean? Like, perfect example, when I first came home, if you've ever seen me outside in 2018, 2019, all the way up to like 2020, I used to be outside, designer down, diamonds on, Rolexes. I just, man, I look back at it and I go, yeah, I was wilding out. I still do, a little bit here and there, but I was looking like $1 million, but I was only making like maybe 50,000 a year around that time. So I really sat back one day during COVID and I just started thinking about how how can I really play the position that I look like I'm in? So I sat in the crib and I locked in. I learned how to engineer. I learned how to produce. I learned how to work cameras. I learned how to do all of these things so I can not have to just look the part. I am the part. If somebody asks me, yo, I need help, shooting this video, I could do it. Yo, I need help. You could be the engineer for the studio session. I could do it with high confidence. You can't tell me a goddamn thing when I'm in my zone. You know what I mean? So, and what I'm speaking on, because I feel like I'm kind of going on and on, is just the finding late success, and what leads up to the success later on in life. Critical thinking, being a little bit more distant, not having relationships that don't mean shit. That's not, uh, productive, having conversations that aren't productive, just gossiping, talking shit. Don't get me wrong, I love a good conversation where we can laugh from the stomach, you know what I mean, and have a good time. But these days, I'm raising a daughter, bro, and I need to really like have relationships that are meaningful to me. And if we can't talk about how we can make some money together or in a way where we could all eat, I don't want to have the conversations no more. And if you know me, I'm a silly dude. I'm a funny guy. But these days, I'm very, 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 very like just like disciplined. I can't do it, man. People be calling my phone. My phone's going off as we speak, and I'm not replying because these conversations that we're having in this group chats and in these goddamn text threads, they just, you know what I mean? It's not something that I want to put my time and energy into right now. You know what I mean? Um, a part of finding success later on in life is this thing called emotional weight, man. And it's from like struggling for years. It causes you to move in silence due to the experience and patience which carries your battles, right? So I have a lot of emotional weight and I keep it to myself, right? I don't share it with nobody because these things I hold close to me because they give me motivation, right? These battles that I fought, they give me motivation once I get past them and I win, right? I don't let them get the best of me, right? And then the decisions that I make become slower, like slower but stronger, if that makes sense to y'all. Like from suffering and if it's processed right. I'm trying to really explain this shit where I sound intelligent. But suffering when processed right or correctly, it creates depth, right? You understand rejection, you understand all of the things you're dealing with because you felt the rejection and you understand the humiliation, right? For example, me going to prison and coming home and then people, talking about me. I've experienced it, but I didn't let me it that I didn't let it like, diminish me. You know, I survived it. So now I understand like the loneliness because I've walked through being lonely. I've walked through not having support. I walked through people turning their back on me and not speaking to me anymore. So you go through all of that, and once you get success, you don't squander it. Like I said before, it's like you appreciate it. You value the success you get. It's not like, oh yeah, this was supposed to happen because I'm just that good. No, it don't work like that. Another thing, as you get older and you experience failure after failure, you know, wrong turn after wrong turn, mistake after mistake. Once you get to this point, right, and I've been here before as well, you have to do a lot of self correction, right? Self correction is how you learn to be successful and knowing everything isn't gonna go right at first. A lot of people believe that everything's supposed to be one and done, got it on the first try. Nope. You know what I mean? That for me, that probably happened 4 times in my whole entire life where something went right the first time. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I went when I went up for parole. They was like, nope, the first time. Second time I got it, right? First time I went to go get my driver license, nope, failed that shit. Had to go back. You know what I mean? Um, but self correction is like you just gotta sit down with yourself and you gotta study your habits, your weaknesses, the excuses you use, your fears, your laziness, your ego, the poor choices you've made. And you got to be brutally honest with yourself. And I've done this. I was brutally honest with myself, right? I sat down for these last couple years and I said, where do I spend most of my time? Or what do I spend most of my time doing? Right? Where do I want to go? What direction do I want to go? Right? What's my excuses that I use to not just get this thing done? Right? When it's something that needs to be done, a lot of us procrastinate. We just wait for a time where we're comfortable enough to do it. Now, you got to be successful. You got to do some things that are uncomfortable, which is getting out of your comfort zone for real, and just handling something that you feel like you don't want to deal with. Self correction, bruh. Right? My poor choices. I looked at my poor choices. Oh my God. I made so many poor choices in my life. And, a lot in my adult life. But most of them were in my during my childhood, late teens. But in my adult life, I made bad choices that, like, I looked at like, damn, if I knew what I knew now, but we all think like that. If I knew what I knew now, this shit wouldn't have happened. But I look back at my mindset and the knowledge that I did have, and I'm like, nah, that shit was inevitable. I was gonna make that bad decision no matter what because of the way I thought back then, right? Um, I don't believe I have a bad ego. I'm level headed. I understand that I'm not the main character in this world. The world doesn't revolve around me. I'm not entitled. I'm not a shithead like a lot of these other guys out here and these other women out here. They just, entitled. They're expect everything to just be handed to them. Like I said, everybody expects shit to just happen one and done. Nah, you gotta really sit back and look at all these things. And as for my habits and weaknesses, um, my habits were not detrimental, but like smoking weed. But I'm not one of those people where smoking weed would make me lazy or just not motivated. It would actually motivate me and give me energy. But I knew that that was something that would hold me back from things in my real life. Not the rap shit. Like finding a job, passing drug screening. But I kind of got rid of that while I was in prison. Even though I was smoking bud in prison, when you're away from something so long, like smoking and drugs in general and drinking, you it kind of comes and goes on its own because you're not around it. You're not indulging. So that was like probably uh, you know I don't think I really had bad habits for real because the way I was raised not to have bad habits. I couldn't afford it. You know what I mean? I would get in some deep shit if I had bad habits. And I seen people in my family with bad habits, so that made me go, yeah, I ain't trying to be on no, time like that. Now, weaknesses. I like to believe I'm a strong person. I like to believe that a lot of the things that I've been through made me very, very strong. Um, my weaknesses as an adult were relationships. And this might, a lot of people might be able to relate to this, but like whether it be an ex-girlfriend, somebody who I was just like fucking in the past, or like even friendships like my boys and shit like that, I would hold on to these relationships and they were absolutely non-productive. You know what I mean? Because I was holding on to the feeling that I once had as a child or as a young man, and reminiscing on those times that we had, thinking that we could possibly get those moments back. And once I realized that a lot of the relationships that I was holding on to was just holding me back and keeping me in this position of, being weak and distracted and motivated for all the wrong reasons, I let those relationships go. And today I'm glad to say, like, I don't really carry out relationships with people who I once had with before. And I'm only open to maintaining relationships if we talking about getting money. If we talking about doing something collaboratively to where we can benefit positively from it, right? Like I said, I'm holding on to relationships with chicks that I used to smash back in the day, and then I just like sat back and I thought like, yo, why? Why am I holding on to this? And if, obviously one of the reasons is hopefully I could smash again. But some of these people that I kept holding on to, they didn't even live in the area. They didn't even, they weren't accessible to me. So I'm sitting here basically fantasizing about something that could never happen again, right? And then like with my boys, and we reminiscing about, again, bitches we used to smash, and we talking about it, and this, that, and the third. And then it's like when you really look at in hindsight, you like, man, this shit don't make no sense. It's a waste of time. I don't want to have conversations that, don't lead to us talking about some way we can succeed and get a bag, or, succeed and take care of our family and create something that is a part of our legacy that we could be proud of. I'm tired of like niggas just thinking, oh, this my man's, and not really thinking about what that means. If you my man's, if you fucked up, I'ma help you out, right? If you down bad, I'ma try to, do what I can for you. If I got it, you got it. I realized a lot of relationships that I had with dudes wasn't like that, because when I was fucked up and down bad at my worst, niggas looked at me like, man, good luck. But yet, niggas be online turned up, balling, or making it seem like they balling. But I was just like, you know what, I gotta let these things go because it's making me weak. In my mind, I'm like, this shit is making me weak because I'm sitting here hoping that somebody was gonna help me out, or I was gonna be able to smash shorty one more good time. And man, none of that shit really matters when you aiming for something higher than just, existing. Um, I use rejection and the delay of me finding success and being ignored as fuel, right? Like I said, I'm in my 30s. I make music. Not too many people are going to listen to a 30-something-year-old rapper, even though I believe that anybody 27 and over who rap, they have stories to tell. Not saying that the younger rappers don't have stories to tell, but a lot of times these younger people, they talk about the same shit over and over again, and after a while you go, yeah, but who are you? Who are you as a person, right? So with me, I tell my story in most of my music. It's rare that I actually have, you know, a song like a club song or something like that. What I'm saying is, to find success, you need, to get to where you going to succeed, you need fuel. So I use, me being late to the party and being rejected and people not listening to my music. I keep going. I believe I got 5 or 6 projects in, right? Not too many people listen to my music, but the people who do, they help me, they motivate me. You know what I mean? They help me come up with ideas. Shout out to Nate. Like she's one of the people who, she gives me the fuel in a positive way. Like she sent me text messages and she talks about my music, and whenever I'm about to put something out, she's one of the first people who I send the full project to. and she give me that motivation. Like, I give my all to this shit, and when it seems like it ain't hitting or people aren't receiving the frequency I'm putting out there, it give me the fuel to keep going, to just keep grinding, to keep hustling, to just keep running it up, and eventually it'll get undeniable. That's one of the goals I set for myself, to be undeniable, to where I have so much that I put out that you'll have to acknowledge me. You'll have to acknowledge that I'm one of the best out here, that a lot of people ain't fucking with me. I believe that in my heart and my soul. Cause I watched what Pac said? He said, on Against All Odds, he said, done seen too many real players fall to let these bitch niggas beat me. That was a real bar, because when you know you talented, when you know you got the gift, and you gotta sit back and, watch people just surpass you, that shit do something to your mind and your soul. You know what I mean? So I'ma keep going. You know what I mean? Whether I'm 33, 34, 45, success is coming. I've been having that feeling for a very long time. I've always felt like there was a higher purpose for me being here. And I'm not going to allow all of the adversity that I've gone through, the pain, the struggle, all of the shit that I've been through cannot stop me from, accomplishing what my purpose is. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna also say, like, time doesn't create success, right? I don't want people to think that I'm just saying, oh, you gotta go through this and this, and over time. No, time doesn't create success, right? You could grow older and repeat the same behaviors and make the same excuses. You could suffer for years and still not learn nothing. I know a few people who have been suffering from years and haven't learned one lesson from it. They just feel like they have bad luck, right? They just, you know what I mean? And I don't believe in luck. Everything happens for a reason. You're here for a reason. You just have to roll with the punches, and hopefully you figure it out. And like I said, do some self-correcting. Realize that you only get to do this once, and you get your shit together. For real, because I'm fine with how my life has been, right? I have had some of the best experiences, becoming a father, being in rooms with people who I've been fans of, being on songs with people who I'm fans of, getting to see the world through my eyes, which I see more beauty than the negative and the ugliness that, is perpetuated on the internet and on TVs and depicted in movies. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Hopefully, y'all picking up what I'm putting down and understanding what my message is. And overall, like, if you in the situation or in the position where you're getting older and you feel like life is passing you by and you don't know which way is up or what direction to follow to become what your idea of successful is, you just got to keep going. For real, because I could have gave up 12, 13 years ago when I was in them goddamn prisons and just accepted, all right, this is the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? And just got deeper and deeper into the institutional mindset, and I chose not to. I chose to keep going and be positive and look at everything in a positive light. Like, my girl be like, you be so negative, but the things that I be so negative about is like, it's like dealing with people who I know are just gonna waste my time, right? My phone will ring and it'll be somebody I don't want to speak to, and I'll go off like, what the fuck do they want? Like, why are they calling? Oh, why you just don't see what they got to say? Because I know this person, right? They're either gonna ask for a favor or they're just gonna be on my line talking a bunch of bullshit. You know what I mean? And then, like, I don't like calling like the health insurance companies and all that, because I know they're gonna give me the run around, because I've been through it before. She's more on the positive about everything, but she hasn't lived a life like me. She was sheltered to a degree to where she didn't really deal with people directly direct directly affecting her time, her patience, her emotions. I've dealt with all of that. So it's like I reserve my time, my attention, because like I said before, I'm selective with who I give access to me. Um, I just don't want to be accessible to people who are just gonna bullshit and waste my time. Time is the most expensive thing we have, and I like to spend these young years that I do have learning and creating and building my foundation for my success. When you experience so much negative shit in your life, like I have, you have an outlook on the world like, all right, I could let people distract me, waste my time, however you want to put it, or I could lock in, be disciplined, and just work hard, hustle, grind, learn, grow, and just be a undeniably great person for real. That's all I want. I ain't got time for the BS no more, man. Like, we ain't getting any younger. Every day is some new bullshit. You know what I'm saying? You know what pisses me off right now is the fact that Sony is talking about how they discontinuing the physical copies of games. Shit like that. That's what scuffs my Tims for real. It's like you gotta take life serious but not too serious, and you gotta want something for yourself other than just to exist. You know, I just want a cat. All I want is a cat of your bands and 25 acres. Cause this shit ain't for the weak. Won't stop until I reach my peak. Alright, now I'm just rambling. But like I said before, I hope that you guys are picking up what I'm putting down, because success, if you haven't already experienced it, you haven't already obtained it, it's coming. You just gotta really put in the footwork, self correction, being selective with your time and your access, being disciplined, really having goals, and following through to execute those goals, to obtain as much knowledge that you possibly can while you're here. And of course, to pass it down. If you have children, nephews, little cousins, just put them on game. Like, I plan on writing a book, self-published, that I'm going to start working on pretty soon. I want to put it out by the time I'm 40. Where it's just gonna be a bunch of stories, just like this podcast, but it's gonna be a bunch of stories in depth about how I grew up and the people who I grew up with, the things we did, and I'm gonna give these books, right, to my daughter, of course, my nephew, who's gonna probably be early 20s by that time, maybe even mid 20s. A selected few young people, because I want them to know that whether or not I find my idea of success, that I lived and I gave it all I could, and that they don't have to go down a path of just settling and just existing. Because I feel like since I was young, I wasn't just existing, I was living, and I was making impacts on people's lives, and created somewhat of a small legacy. And yeah, that's my message, man. It's been another episode of Oath, where we obtain, we achieve, we thrive, and we always hustle.